Ladies and gentlemen, it may be Saturday afternoon where you are, Saturday evening where our guest is. It might be cold, it might be snow, ice, you might be dealing with all of it, but we're going to warm things up here and some with the most viewed guest in Sportswire Radio's YouTube history. A man that made history, a man that is a trailblazer, a man that is an inspiration, as he was the first British fighter to have ever fought in Dombay at last weekend's African Warriors Fighting Championship Kings of Dombay event. And I'm sure our guest wishes he might have been in that 80 plus degree weather because in the UK and everywhere else, like I said, it is a polar vortex. But I assure you, he is going to warm things up and talk about his journey. It is one for the ages. And if you saw what took place on the YouTube page of the African Warriors Fighting Championship page, he is going to have some story. He is a man that I'm telling you, nobody has ever walked in his shoes, and nobody is ever going to have a story that he tells for us here tonight. If you thought the first two times on Sportswire Radio he had something to say, wait until you hear what he has to say tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's been here before, but because he's a man that made history, it's time for him to get that introduction that he's used to getting, and an introduction that he probably didn't get in Nigeria because A, they probably didn't have the lungs like I do, but also B, they don't know him and love him like we do here on Sportswire Radio. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to give him that introduction that he certainly deserves because he is a trailblazer, an icon, and there might even be an announcement on his behalf, on behalf of our Sportswire Radio show and our platforms in a little while. So with that, without further ado here in the Sports Report, number one, level Butcher, the first ever British fighter to have fought in Dombay at the African Warriors Fighting Championship Kings of Dombay show in Nigeria. His name is the champ is here.
Thank you, Mr. Bryce. You know what? That gets better every single time.
You know, it's funny you said that because a few days ago I was on the air with CCW's Coming Out Championship Wrestling General Manager Taylor Truth, and I literally clutched my chest and I thought my vocal cords were going to pop. So I was kind of like, "Uh-oh, here we go." But I've actually kind of rested a little bit the last few days. I've kind of did a little bit of a different way I've done the intro. That's kind of helped. So I think we've got a way to adjust that. But forget about all of that. My vocal cords are no match Luke Leyland. What you did last weekend at the other end of the world, literally from here and from where you are currently in Nigeria, as you were the first British fighter to have ever fought in Dombay at the African Warriors Fighting Championship, Kings of Dombay. You fight Shagan Yellow, and certainly it was one for the age. And I have to ask you, kind of in a set of questions, but kind of the first one here, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, those that are fans of Dombay and the African Warriors Fighting Championship Series, how did it feel to go out there and be the first person, non-African, first British fighter to have ever participated in Dombay last weekend?
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. But what was on my mind really was not only to obviously get the job done, but get it done in the right way as well. Obviously there was a lot of eyes on us, and a lot of people expecting great things. So it was important to me that we didn't only get the job done, but we to do it in the right way. So that was very important. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this question, and I want to talk about the audience. I want to talk about the crowd itself, but you've been a wrestler, obviously, to pull the curtain more or less. We've obviously talked about, we've had you on now 3 times in just about a year. and you've wrestled, and obviously, you've wrestled in some big crowds, but I don't think, you can obviously fact check me on this, Luke, because you wrestled and I didn't. I didn't watch you in the ring live, but I'm pretty sure that you've never been in a crowd or in front of an audience what you saw in Nigeria. What was that like when, I know we spoke about it last month. I know we spoke about kind of getting there and the preparation, but I don't think you can ever prepare for something that you did last weekend. So when you get there and you see all those people there, was there nerves? Did you start to kind of think about it? I mean, talk to me about that reaction. Because like I said, you've wrestled before, you've been in for some crowds, but it was no comparison to what you saw in Nigeria. So talk to me about when you finally stepped in front of that audience.
To be fair, because of the wrestling, I think that really made me settle in front of the crowd. When we were wrestling, the more people that were there we were more relaxed. The less people, it
I know it
get
gets weird. Yeah, you start seeing certain people, they start saying things, and it gets into your head. Yeah, that I know, because we had Dino on, and Vito Fratelli, who's currently in the PWI 500, told me the same thing about 5 months ago. Yep.
Yeah, it's for me, and I presume other wrestlers. It's the more crowd that's there, the more it's very strange, but more like kind of relaxed with it. So when I came out, and I'd been to a couple of Danbei fights a couple of nights beforehand, and there was a couple of crowds there, but it was nothing like that. That event that I was headlining, so to say. It was just mental. There's people sitting on like walls and everything. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah. But I
got to be honest with you, Luke, watching Danbei after we spoke about it, and then watching some of the things on the African Warriors Fighting Championships YouTube page we're going to plug here in a few minutes, I almost felt like it was like a scene out of Mad Max almost. I almost felt like it was like, I know Mad Max is coming out in a couple of months. I almost felt like it was like a scene out of Mad Max, more or less.
Yeah, it was definitely a scene out of a movie. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. But to be fair, when I got on that stage, even beforehand, on the sand, even beforehand, on a couple of events, because I was going up to greet the crowd and stuff. Honestly, I felt at home, like just seeing the crowd and the way they reacted and being on the sand, and yeah, it was, for me, it's like being at home. It really was, and I was so comfortable in front of that crowd, and just with the fighters and reacting to the drums and everything. It was.
I know. I heard those drums. I was like, I've covered a lot of wrestling. I mean, obviously, we certainly get new things in wrestling, but I don't know if you could prepare for something like that. And the first thing that came to mind, just because I saw the trailer for it, was Mad Max, the Mad Max remake. And I'm like, Luke, you must feel like that of a scene. You do have that Mel Gibson look a little bit like. Maybe you're just in Mad Max, and we don't know about that. But I'm curious on something, and I'll say hello to a few people in a second. People are kind of just tuning in here, and thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you for those that will watch later on. But because you went the night before and got to watch a little bit of Danbei in person, did that help your nerves at all? And what was that experience like in preparation for what you were going to face the next night?
It didn't really help, because all them fighters are different. They've all got their own styles, so I really had to concentrate on Sheikh on Yallow's style. And to be fair, for months I was watching GB and Sander, because I was prepared for him, and I was watching little things.
About that last month, yeah. I mean, I was almost like not gonna say it, but I guess it's like the old wrestling analogy: card subject to change.
Yeah, well, it was 2 days before, and I was like, "What?" But yeah, I was so prepared for him. Just little things, his movements. Like I was watching things that you wouldn't even expect. Just his movements around the sand. Just there was like, because he's quite popular. He's very popular over there.
Yes, I watched some of his stuff. Yeah, he's a certainly very very established fighter. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was watching everything about him, even just like when he was like, he went to this gym over there, and I was just watching little things, like I was reacting in front of the camera, and yeah, as soon as it got changed, that was kind of like a mind boggling situation. I was like, right, okay, because I'd just been watching him so much, and I was prepared for him, like mentally and spiritually, physically.
I remember asking you about that when you came on last month, and we were talking about that preparation for him. But then it's 2 days right before an event. It's almost also, in a way, for those that have boxed, it's like when you go and box sometimes, where the fighter pulls out last minute and you get somebody to fight, and it's like you don't know how to prepare. So what do you do in that case? I mean, you have like that kind of situation that happens. What do you do? What did you do?
Uh, to be fair, I was first told, and we were in the car, me and Maxwell, and Maxwell said, I've got some news for you.
Uh-oh.
Jan Sanders pulled out, and I was like, the first thing that I was like, what? And then because everything, all my preparation, mentality, everything was pointing towards Jan Sanders. So I was like,
Mm.
okay. And he said, but we've got a new opponent to offer you. And so there's a bit of a story behind it. So a couple of days beforehand, obviously we would spent a lot of time in the arena, and I spent a lot of time with the fighters, and we were sitting in the arena, and I had a bottle of water, and I was just sitting there watching what we were doing, this fighter walks past, and he very lightly just pulls on the bottle of water, like leans over and just pulls it dead lightly. So I thought, okay, he's after like a drink or something. So I gave him the bottle of water, and then he walks off. So I didn't really click on to what was going on.
Mm.
And then the fighters started laughing. So I was like, what's going on? And then Maxwell came over and sat next to me, and he said, he's just took your water. And then it clicked. I thought he's testing me here. So I was like, that's not happening. So I
Ah.
got up. I got, he was trying to see, the reactions. It's a test. It's a test. So I was like, that's not happening. And Maxwell was like, oh, just leave it. And I was like, nah, that's not happening. So I caught up with him in like the entrance bit. And I
Uh-huh.
said, hey, and I took the water back off him, and he kind of leaned back a bit. I don't know what he was expecting me to do, but and I just said, that's mine. And then I walked back over then and sat down where I was originally sitting. But it stuck in my head. I thought, is that how it's going to be? And I said to Maxwell, do you know what? I know like we're setting all this up, like, but I could very easily fight with him over that there and then, trying to disrespect me like that. So, especially in front of the fighters, and you can't let that happen there like that.
That's almost
So,
like, what that's almost like, and I obviously don't have any experiences for the audience listening to this, but that's like they say that when you're in jail and somebody tries to pick a fight with you, they almost say like, okay, well, you don't run away from it. You almost kind of have to go kind of, head on and tackle
100%.
it almost. And, if something happens and, you have to almost, that's what you had to do. You had that, fight or flight moment. That was the moment where he was trying to get into your head almost. And you handled it, I think, the way you needed to handle it.
Well, at that time, I was already set to face GB and Sander,
Yep.
so there was no real reason for him to try and get in my head or anything. But that's what happened, and I thought I can't. I'm not letting him do that. I would have, as I said, I would have fought with him there and then. But after that, obviously the whole GB and Sander situation happened, and I was in the car with Maxwell a couple of days later, and he said, "Look, he's pulled out, but what do you think about Shay Yellow?" He said, "The fella who took your water." And the first thing I said to Maxwell is, "I'm going to punch his head in." And he said, "Okay." So I was like, "Let's get it
Well,
done.
this
Let's get it
kind of
done."
says, Luke, it sounds like it is wrestling all over again. Yeah, I know you left that game a long time ago, but it's almost like the same thing. The water bottle, the incident with the water bottle, he slaps your water bottle, and then all of a sudden, Jan Sander pulls out, and then all of a sudden, Maxwell goes to you. What do you think about
Yeah.
fighting Shagan Yellow? That to me almost sounds like, are you sure you're not in wrestling rather than Dambe wrestling?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It all happened like a movie. But I was then, like, when I was originally facing Jan Sander, I wanted to get in Jan Sander's head originally and all that, but I wanted to do it in kind of a respectful way. With Shay
Sure.
Yellow, it was different. It was different. I thought, okay, you want to try and disrespect me? I'm going to disrespect you.
Yeah, because
So
we spoke a lot with you and Jan last month when we had you on, and there was like a lot of mutual respect. It was kind of like
yeah,
that, almost like, you know what, you're going to be very professional. It's going to be a match, but you obviously respected his abilities. Certainly, I'm sure he had his opinions, but at the end of the day, he knew you were stepping into his circle and you were doing something that nobody else has done. But you and
yeah,
Shagan, it was almost like, I don't know, it was almost
it
like
was.
Logan Paul and Kevin Owens on SmackDown yesterday.
It was crazy. Yeah. The only, as I say, like, I'm a respectful guy, and as I said, I wanted to do this whole journey and make history in the right way, respectfully. But as soon as he told me who my opponent was, and then after the water bottle incident, I thought, okay, this is going to be a little bit more spicy. So just there was little things like, even we were outside, and the first time I seen him, and when I knew I was against him, I was like, "Come here." And he didn't know
Wow.
what was going on, and then
Mm.
told him that it was against me, and he come over, and he was them Danbay fighters are all very like respectful with each other and stuff. And
Yeah, I
I once,
watched a lot of it. There is a sign of like sportsmanship. There is a
yeah,
sign of
yeah,
like there is that okay, you come in and certainly one man's going to win, but there is that level of respect. There is that level of competition. Sure, and obviously it's fierce. There's no question. If you haven't checked out Donbay, those are the links right there. And I'm going to say hello to a few people in a second, but Donbay, there is certainly that level of sportsmanship that a lot of other competitive sports do not have. To be quite
yeah.
frankly.
Yeah, definitely. They are very respectful of each other. So when he see me, he was trying to kind of be that respectful, and I was like, no, I'm going to get into your head now for that. And yeah, we had a little tussle outside, and um, yeah, I was just trying to get into his head. Like every now and then, when I'd see him, I'd have a water bottle, and I'd be like, come and take it, come and take it. And he'd be like looking at me, but yeah, he's really resilient to it. To be fair, I said some crazy stuff to him, and he was just very resilient of it. Like, yeah, he was very. His mindset was set, and he just didn't
Oh.
he didn't let me get to him at all. So I was quite impressed by that. To be fair,
I'm
he was
gonna talk about that. Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I do want to say hello to some people here. I want to say hello to my buddy Skulls, the Soul Hunter. Skulls, thank you for your support. Skulls wrote me a nice message yesterday. I don't know why he didn't just give it to me on Facebook, but he wrote it on our website at sportswireradio.org. But hope you're doing well, my friend. And Skulls is gonna certainly be back on Sportswire in the month of March. I'm happy to have that. Also, our friend Jules out there in New York City. Congratulations on your amazing achievements. Yes, I definitely agree about that. Thank you for tuning in. And man, I hear through the grapevine that you've become pretty good friends with, who's going to be back on the show Wednesday night, by the way, 8 o'clock British Standard Time, in your chair. Another man that has a mixed martial arts shooting, fighting background, who's a wrestling star currently. That is Mr. Tribal Cheese Logan, who's on YouTube, by the way, at Mad Manx. And he messaged me, by the way. He said, when are you coming on? He said, I'm really excited about this one. And he also wants to say that Mind Games and Fighting Classic Tactics, I had a guy chomping at his Mars bar. Wait a minute. Somebody was trying to chop at your Mars bar. You, of all people, Mr. Tribal Cheese, and laughing me at before a face-off after a hard weight cut. That's interesting. That's an interesting tactic there. I want to say hello to our buddy out there in the state of Wisconsin, Adonis Felios, a.k.a. the Drip King. How you doing, Adonis? Adonis is the co-host of the Wolfpack Hour with the big bad Silver Wolf, which you can check out tomorrow night, I believe, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow them on YouTube at Silver Wolf 397. So thank you for tuning in. Yes, enter the dripness for sure. And he thanks me for the shout out. Anytime, my friend. We'll definitely see you on the platform and tune in. This is one I promise you're gonna want to hang out for. So okay, so you get there, you get in. We see this stuff with the water bottle. Jan Sander pulls out. You've got Shagan Yellow, and you're now stepping into that octagon. We talked about the audience. You said you really weren't unnerved because you'd been a wrestler, and that helped you, which is I could certainly see that makes a lot of sense. So you've been through these situations before. A guy named Dean Allmark who trained you, so that definitely helps you. Dean Allmark's been in there, and he's defeated the likes of a Jushin Thunder Liger and a Bryan Danielson. So enough said. You obviously see the mind games, but now you have that moment. I know we talked a lot about the training, the 5 a.m. walks and the 5:30 a.m. You're out there and it's cold. And I mean, your body looked great. Watching you in there, I mean, you looked like you could probably have been doing this for 10 years. I mean, the shape you were in was in phenomenal shape. I mean, I think the way you looked out there, I hope that, I'm sure I'll ask you a question about this in a little while. I'm going to hold my thought. But so you finally enter that circle there and you face off Shagan Yellow. Talk to me about what's going on through your mind, because now you got to fight. There's no more talking. There's no more mind games. There's no more thinking about the crowd. You're in there in that moment last weekend in Nigeria. Take me through it.
So as soon as I get on the sand, I looked over at Shagon Yellow, and is one thing that stood out. He just wasn't rocked at all. Like his eyes, like sometimes when you're doing these kind of things, you can see people get a little bit shaken. And he just was not shaken at all. He was very natural. That's what I've seen. It's like just a second nature there to him. So I was like, right, okay. But in my mind, I just thought, like, I had a game plan. It was just attack the calf, and then a lot of feinting and try and touch his chin. Which obviously didn't go the way I planned, but that was just over in my head. I thought, attack the calf, get the feints, touch his chin, attack the calf. So that was always going in my head. And I kind of had stick to that like game plan in my head. I couldn't let anything get to me. And I had a few other little plans as well, but obviously, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So
I know it's
things have
easier
changed.
said than done. I always remember
Yeah.
when I was a kid, we'd get into fights growing up in Brooklyn. I remember my father always saying, "You got to go like this. You got to keep your keep your fist up. You got to keep your chin up." And it was easy for him because he was he boxed actually. But for me, I wasn't a boxer. I mean, that's why I'm here and you are there. But I mean, it's so hard to do, and then you get hit. It's that moment that you're almost like your body has all these like almost like reactions that you're trying to like figure out, and it's almost like in a way you're in a ship, almost like you're in like a spaceship in a movie, and like you're being hit, and it's like you don't know kind of how to react almost. So I mean, it's easier said than done almost.
Well, to be fair, what was in my mind, I thought I don't want to get touched by that rope, because it's what I think some people don't understand with that rope. They pull it so tight, and it ends up like at the end when you finish tying it, it's like a rock. It's harder than your actual hand. It's very crazy. So I thought I don't want to be getting touched by that, but I got obviously a few belts, and I thought, okay, I'm still here, I'm still in the game, I'm not going down, so let's crack on. But yeah, that was one of the main things. We had a little bit of an issue as well beforehand with a gum shield. We were meant to wear gum shields, but with my usual gum shield, I get it made off the dentist, so it fits me perfectly. And I can't just have a normal like gum shield straight away. You've got to obviously boil it and things like that. So we had a bit of an issue before going in there, and I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to wear a gum shield if he's not.
It's funny. That's funny.
That was another thing.
I would never have thought of that. I mean, as somebody myself who actually was given one of those, I was given one of those, and I forget what the instance was. I was kind of like, I never wore it all together, but I never would have thought that you would have had an issue, and that would have been something you would have thought about. I would not have realized that. Why was that?
Well, to be fair, when I first arrived in Nigeria, my bag when it didn't get delivered. Do you know when you're waiting for the
right, the luggage? Sure, you put a certain
the luggage thing.
Sure. Yeah,
it wasn't there, so we were waiting for ages. We had to put like a what's it called, like a complaint thing in. So I didn't have any me luggage at all. My gum shield was in there. Me malaria medication, everything was in there. So that was a bit like mentally challenging, because I thought, I've got nothing. I literally only had the clothes that I had on, really. So that was really that began a chain of events that was really, really difficult to deal with. But African Warriors helped out, and they had an amazing PA called Aisha, who was constantly running back and forth for me to go and get stuff. I must have done a head in, honestly, because I was like, "Can you get us this? Can you get us that?" So she really helped out, and African Warriors really helped out. Like, but not having your own stuff, that was a bit of a mental challenge, because I had nothing. I didn't even have, like, it's quite funny, but I didn't even have boxes. Underwear. I didn't even have, I had nothing, and I was like, oh. So obviously my gum shield was in there, so I didn't have that.
Well, you said your luggage was lost, so I would have to think everything that was in the luggage or in the suitcase was you're not going to have. So I'm sure you packed, whatever it was, accessories. So you didn't have it. So I would imagine that you're all, what you had was all whatever, obviously the African Warriors Fighting Championships provided. So I mean, you're kind of like, now you're really at their mercy. You're at their behest and call, more or less, champ.
Honestly, and I felt it as well. Like, there was one night in my room, and I thought, like, I've got nothing. And then I didn't have, like, my chargers to the phone. My phone was going low. I didn't have Wi-Fi. It was very, very mentally challenging.
Well, you really then had to focus on your fight. And you can look at it in a way. We're speaking here with Luke Leyland. Luke, of course, is the first British fighter to have ever fought in Dombey at last weekend's African Warriors Fighting Championships Kings of Dombey event. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here on Sportswire Radio. You can follow the African Warriors Fighting Championship on Instagram, African Warriors FC, YouTube, African Warriors, Twitter, African FC, Facebook, African Fighting Warriors, and AfricanWarriorsFC.com for all of your African Warriors Fighting Championship information. We want to thank Maxwell Callow and, of course, Luke Leyland for giving us this awesome opportunity. But, you can look at it in a way, and I want to talk about something you did in the fight, or how you fought in the fight necessarily, because that was kind of a big topic from some people in social media. But you can look at it, you had all those things you would have bought, whether it was your phone, whether it was internet. Maybe could you have said that actually helped you focus? Because you can look at it from some way. everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to know, how's the weather? How's Nigeria? How's this? How's that? But, maybe in a way, because you had all that stuff that wasn't with you, maybe did that allow you just to focus on your opponent, and especially after what happened with Jan Sander pulling out, then all of a sudden what happens with the water bottle a few days back prior to him pulling out and shaking yellow, and then he becomes your opponent. So what's your thoughts on all that?
It was just I just had to go with the flow with it. But when all this stuff was happening and I didn't have me like little necessities and stuff, I really did. It was actually my girlfriend as well that said, you know what, just point it all towards, at the time, Jan Sander. And she said, like, anything that's doing your head in, anything that you're struggling with, just point it all towards Jan Sander and make him pay for it, basically. But yeah, that's it. It was a challenge, but as I said, I just kind of tried to focus on the goal and what we were there for, and it seemed to work at that time. So yeah,
it certainly did, and we want to say hello to somebody there. Hello, I'm sure you probably know who that person is, but we'll leave that at that. We'll certainly not. We like to make sure everybody can say hello in a comfortable fashion. But there was something, and you would in the fight, people were talking about how you were fighting in your movement, how that maybe not that it wasn't the proper way, but it maybe kind of didn't help you throughout the fight. I mean, I know it's so hard to prepare for something that you've never actually done before in a competitive fashion. Did you feel it in looking back and watching some of the tape now and being able to digest? I know now it's been a week. You came back home a couple of days ago, so you got a little bit of a chance now to kind of like maybe, reflect on this. Do you feel like in terms of your fighting style, that was something that you could have done differently, or that there was no way you could have prepared for something like this the way you did?
this Danbei is, with it being so unique, it's very, very hard to train for, because you can't replicate certain things. As I said, I was down at the beach where I live now, and I was trying to get like a lot of movement on the sand. The sand, that being on that sand in that circle was completely different. Obviously, I slipped a couple of times. So I
I
kind
did
of
see
looking
that.
back,
Yeah.
I probably should have probably spent more time on the sand, but it's one of them. The only thing I can say is that I give it me all, but it's you can't. It's very hard to replicate and to try and train for. But with that sand, as I say, it's like there's like divots and all sorts, so it's very hard to get used to. But it's definitely something that you can. It's a great experience being on there. It was just very difficult to get used to.
Do you have any regrets on what you did in the fight, or anything that you would have done? I know it's so hard to say these things, but I ask people this
Yeah.
question all the time. People like you that have done important things. Do you look back? Could you have done anything differently?
There's probably 1,000 things I could have done differently.
Yeah,
Definitely.
other
Like,
than
when I
do
look
more,
back at it,
other than do more damage in the fight, anything else?
yeah. Um, I mean, to be fair, I don't think so. I feel like I defeated myself,
Why?
because like well, if you look at the um the way I missed a kick and spun round, in my mind, I thought if I
Yeah,
spend
yeah,
too
yeah.
long facing the other way, he's gonna come behind me and hit me in the back of the head, which he could have done. He had every right to do. But I've even with the punches, like I put everything into them couple of punches that I tried to throw at him, and it was almost like I put too much into it, because that was inevitably the end of it, because I come off balance. But I think I should have just maybe settled a little bit more, and it sounds very weird, but not tried so hard. Because I think that was the beginning of the end, because I tried to put everything into my punches, and I thought if I can get hold of him and touch him on the chin with that rope, then it's over. But in the end, obviously, I missed and then overcommitted to the punch. But yeah, just settle a little bit more, I think, and he was very comfortable in there. These Danbei fighters, they fight multiple times a week, and need to
Oh
train
wow.
every single day. So that's just like that's just second
There
nature
was
to it.
no listen.
To me, I was like,
There's
this is
no
like the
way.
fight of my
Yeah,
life.
listen. There's no way you could have prepared for something like that in a way. Because take a step back. You
Yeah,
said something very interesting for those that are listening and watching here that don't know about Dambe and how to train for that. Fighters every day are doing something. Fighters actually participate in Dambe multiple times a week. You are in
yeah,
phenomenal shape. You have been a pro wrestler before. You have done a lot of things. You are not some guy that, it doesn't have any physical ability. You have been somebody that has done a lot of physical things in your life, and you look great, but you can't prepare for something like that. It's almost like, in a way, let's say I'm a boxer, right? Let's take the boxing analogy. And I look great. I'm in great shape, but I haven't been hit in the face. I haven't been hit in the mouth in, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years, and I'm stepping back in the ring. I mean, sure, people can say George Foreman, that was really an act of God. Let's be honest. An act of God, what George Foreman did after 10 years, coming back into boxing and becoming a world champion again. But the point is, you could have been in great shape, but you didn't compete in their world. There was no way you could have prepared for any of that. Am I wrong?
No, 100%. You can't prepare for anything like that at all. Not only the fight, but for being on that stage. There was little things that were happening
That
that in
crowd,
told
like I
me it
said, we
was.
talked about at the beginning, that crowd. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Listen, we cover a lot of things on sports, but I don't know if I've seen anything like that. And I just had on last week the head coach of the United States women's amputee soccer team, Paige Palazzolo. She went to Poland, and even
yeah.
that would pale into comparison to what you did, because that crowd, you were really in as enemy territory as you could have been in. There was no way you could have prepared for any of this. No way.
But to be fair, it's not only just dealing mentally with the fight. There was quite a lot of people that wanted me to win, and people were coming up to me before the fight saying, like, we believe in you, and we think you can do this and all that. So it's that kind of little stresses as well. Usually, like, I find it easy to be the underdog. That I think that's easy. But when people start relying on you, that's a different mental challenge. So it's. Yeah, it was one of them, but I just enjoyed the whole experience. Just as I say, the crowd, I love the crowd. It's something that's very important to me, all that sort of stuff, and just to be able to get on there and perform like that and for them, I made up. I just wish it would have went a little bit longer as well, because in the back of my mind, I thought, you know what, I don't want. If you look at some Danbei fights, sometimes you can not have that much action because they're waiting for the other person's reaction. And I didn't want it to be one of them fights. I wanted to give the crowd some action.
You know what Dombe is like to me? You know what you said? You made an interesting note. It almost reminds me like the way you obviously, hang on to each other and then kind of let go. It's almost like if you remember playing Duck Hunt, Duck Hunt, you kind of be waiting for the duck to shoot, the old Nintendo game. And it's almost like, in a way, it's kind of like how you're waiting for that moment. And it's almost like, or even like a football game around the world. Sometimes, for 60 minutes in the match, there's no action. But then all of a sudden in 5 minutes, the game completely changes. Dombe to me is very similar to that, because all of a sudden, you could be going out there for, that minute, and then all of a sudden, in 10 seconds, the whole thing changes and you might have missed what took place.
Yeah, no, definitely. Maxwell Kalu said it right. He said Danbe's sometimes like waiting for a bomb to go off. It's it can be very, very quiet at first, but then bang. So I didn't really want to have a very slow kind of technical fight. I wanted to give the crowd something to watch, and that's what I tried to do. But I think inevitably that's where I come unstuck. I think but yeah, it was a good little fight, and if there's a next time, then hopefully I'll do.
Well, I'm gonna come back to that, but I do before I say hello to one of my buddies here from Sportzwire Radio. How's your eye doing? How's your right eye?
Fine, absolutely fine. It's to be fair, I thought I still would have had it for the show, but yeah, no, it's spot on. It's healed really, really quick. Initially, a couple of the crew members were a bit concerned about it and said like if I should go and get it checked out. But I've had a couple of black eyes, and yeah, it went straight away. So
I'm happy to hear that. We're happy to hear, because I was wondering watching the fight. I was like, how you doing there? And that was kind of I had to ask it on the air. And I want to say hello to my buddy Ron Franklin. Ron is out there in the state of Pennsylvania. He's always been a big fan of ours. He's on our team Friday nights, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Ron, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for tuning in. And if you are on Sportzwire Radio, we have an internet radio station where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our great content. We also play podcasts around the world. We also have live music. We had our live DJ yesterday, 80, and he was spinning tunes for over 4 hours last night. We had over 200 people that tuned in. I want to thank 80 for doing a great job alongside his buddy Steve, and we take requests, shout outs. So we might have that back in the fold Friday nights here. Friday nights, Luke's time here. And also, if you want to check us out, we're on YouTube. If you want to watch our past, present, and future interviews, we hope with Luke Leyland. And of course, anything we can do for the African Warriors Fighting Championships. You can check us out on YouTube at Sportswire Radio, 6579 backspace streams. We're getting close to 500 subscribers, so definitely subscribe, join. Also want to thank everybody on Twitch that has recently followed us. We're now on Twitch. You can check us out Twitch at Sportswire Radio. We're at Tumblr at Sportswire Radio, so you can check us out there. We might have an announcement or two there about Luke in a little while that maybe we want to share from there, but also we are going to be back here at 10 o'clock Eastern time with DJW. DJW is a pro wrestler star from EBW Pro, and also DBW. He's going to talk about his journey, talk about some recent things that have happened with him, and we're going to talk about that here on all Sportswire Radio platforms, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'm excited to speak with him because actually I was supposed to have spoke with him like 4 different times, and like half the times I was either fall asleep or going to take a nap, or he and I, our schedules didn't match up. But I was like, all right, I'm here. It's so cold in New York. I'm not going anywhere. As much as I want to see Beekeeper again, I think I'm just staying in. Maybe I go and get a big gulp if it's not too cold. We'll see. But obviously, DJW, you're up next. You're up 10 o'clock Eastern time. But if you want to follow Luke also, I'd like you to follow him on Instagram at Luke Leyland1. Make sure you check him out. Very simple. 1 as in the number 1. And also support our friends at the African Warriors Fighting Championships. They do a phenomenal job, and we want everybody to support those that are doing great things. And what an honor it is to have on the most viewed guest on the YouTube page of Sportswire Radio's history, Mr. Luke Lang. We're getting ready to celebrate our 5-year anniversary this Thursday, and I think there is no better way to kick off our week-long celebration than having on the most viewed man in Sportswire Radio's YouTube history than Mr. Luke Lang. All right, so obviously the fight doesn't happen the way that we'd hoped for. But if I told you in my mind you still won by going out there and competing and holding up your own and showing that you could fight, you were in great shape, you certainly didn't let anything get to you, and you had a very respectable showing, what would you say to that?
That's amazing to hear, to be fair, because that's the most important thing in my mind, even going out there. I said to Maxwell, the most important thing, win, lose, whatever, I want to be able to belong on that sand. And I want the people to be able to say, yeah, Luke Leyland was here and he put on a good show. But yeah, I think inevitably it was his experience and that got the better. And I just wanted to put on a good show for the fans. I wanted to represent myself, my family very well, and just do a great job. Obviously, it didn't. If it was going to be like I wanted it to be, then I would have went the full 3 rounds. But I tried my best, and it's.
Hey, listen, you know what? That's what they say. At the end of the day, you went out there and tried. And like I said, you could never have prepared for this experience. There was no way you could have prepared for this. Absolutely none.
No, absolutely not. And just to be on there as well with a great warrior in Shea Gonyalo, that means a lot to me as well to face someone like that. I gave him a lot of stick beforehand. I was trying to get into his head, and we were facing off. We nearly.
You might have been like one of our recent shows on Sportswire where the wrestlers were going back and forth with a bunch of them, but it didn't work. What can you do?
It was important to me after the fight that I went over and shook his hand and thanked him for fighting me, because I gave him that much grief. I just afterwards I was raised that whatever fight you get involved in afterwards, you always shake hands, and win or lose, you have that respect. So that was very important to me. If you see, there's loads of YouTube videos on there.
Yep.
If you see just beforehand, you can see a little bit of commotion with me and a couple of the people that was on the sand, and I was trying to say to them, I need to go over and shake his hand, but they wouldn't let me go near him, and I was like, no, like I need to shake his hand. So eventually they understood the reason why I was after him, and then I went over, shook his hand and thanked him for fighting me, which I think the way every fight should finish, really.
Yeah, and I agree with you 1,000% on that. And I could certainly see your professionalism certainly comes also in part to somebody we know very well, thanks to you, is Mr. Dean Allmark. But we'll certainly come to that later on. But I have to ask you the question. I don't think I've asked you yet. So how did you like Nigeria? What was the experience there? What was the culture, the nightlife? How was the food? You have to tell us, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire, and guys like me in New York that have never really had any picture of Nigeria. What was Nigeria like?
So we started off over in Lagos, and Lagos is the only way I can describe Lagos is it's like it's a city. It's very lively. The driving over in Lagos is absolutely crazy. all you hear is horns, like high speed and horns. But it seems to work though. So it's but yeah, the city itself is amazing. Going from Lagos to Kanu, the weather,
Oh,
it's all in the same country, but the weather was slightly different. So Kanu
hmm.
had a bit more of a dry heat, where Lagos was a little bit more humid. It was very strange, but you can feel
Hmm.
it like straight away. It was so
Wow.
it's only like an hour on a plane. So then we went from Kanu to Katsina, which Katsina is a little bit more, almost like more rural. It's like it's not as busy as Lagos, but the people are absolutely amazing. They're so passionate, and they treated me like a family member. There was people going past in like little tuk tuks, and when they recognised me, they were like waving and doing the little down bass stance and stuff. And yeah, it was amazing. The people really did give me energy, and
Oh.
I'm still a little bit confused as to why they like me so much. But yeah, they
I
just
think
really
it's
did.
because you came on Sportswire twice. That's what I think.
That's
I think it's
that's
because you
it.
came on
That's it.
No,
Yeah,
no. That,
absolutely.
that's not the reason. That's definitely not the reason. But I was also curious, what's the food like there? I think I would be so fascinated to know, like, what did you eat there? Like, what's that like in terms of what's the kind of, the cuisine there, more or less?
Yeah, so Maxwell and a couple of the crew members were trying to get me to eat different things, or show me different types of foods. I ate a lot of meats, and I think it was called soya. I've probably absolutely butchered that, but there was like a food called soya, which is like mostly meats, but it was lovely, absolutely stunning. It's really, I every single day I was eating, I tried to stick to the same thing because I didn't want to become like ill or anything. So I thought the
Sure.
last thing I
Sure.
need is
That's like when
having
my
something different.
friend, one of our listeners, a guy Josh Bailey, who lives not too far from me, and he went to Mexico. This was about almost 5 years ago now. This is before COVID. He went to
Yeah,
Mexico and he went there and got sick. There was something. I think he drank the water or something, and he got sick.
yeah,
And it was like we didn't hear from him for a while. And it was like, oh well, where were you? Where you were, buddy? And that's so I could understand you were afraid. You didn't want to get sick. Sure.
yeah. So that was what I kept dreaming about it. To be fair, I thought like I kept dreaming that I'd had like a stomach bug, and like that I wasn't be able to fight. And I thought that's the last thing I
Oh
need.
my god. It's funny you said that. I
So
always think the same thing every time before I go on a show. I'm always so like terrified of getting a stomach ache. It's funny you said that. I'm the
yeah,
same
yeah.
way.
But the food though, but like the foods that I did have was lovely. I had, like a lot of rice, but everything was like quite spicy as well. But
Okay.
usually I'm a little bit not great with spice, but like it was
Me
just
either. That
the
makes
right
me
amount of spice.
okay.
But yeah, it was lovely. Maxwell actually gave me this, just saying about different foods. It was like this nut, and he had a bit of a cold at this time, and he said like you peel it like this nut off, and then he said when you eat it, it's not spicy. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's like having a almost like like a minty like chewy. Because when I ate it,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like I can feel it in me like me nose and in the back of my throat and everything. It was very strange, but yeah, it was like a little nut. I forgot what it was called. Um, and there was a fruit over there that again I can't remember the name of it, but there was Maxwell gave me like this fruit as well that was absolutely stunning. But
So
yeah,
no
I
Mars,
did a
no, so
couple
no,
of
so
different
no,
foods.
so no Cadbury's or Mars over there then.
Oh no, 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 definitely not. No, I just when I was in the place we were staying, like this compound place, the I just stuck to the same foods of a morning. That was usually like egg on bread with like a cup of tea. I just thought just
All right.
stick with that. But
Yeah,
every now and then
I
I'd
would
probably
have.
ask for
I would have
chips.
been the same. You know what? I would have been the same way. I don't think I would have did differently. But what I will ask you
Yeah,
is, I bet you missed you. I bet you missed the heat over there. I bet you definitely missed that warm weather because you come back here and it's like night and day
yeah.
almost.
My body doesn't know what's going on because like I've come from Katsina where that's like kind of on the verge of the Sahara. So the heat is very, very dry and just there in your face. And then I've come back to England and it was snowing. So my body was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, the
So
Tribal
it's
Chief just posted he was on a mountain yesterday with his nieces and his nephews, and I was like, "I'm going to talk to you today." I'm like, "Wow, we went from the Tribal Cheese where he's in like -3, and then you were last
yeah,
weekend like in like 90 degrees and probably 75% humidity, and you come back here, you're like, maybe
yeah.
I should have stayed in Nigeria. Look, maybe you should stay there rather than come here."
I would love to. I mean, as I said, there's nothing about Nigeria I didn't like. The people, like the food was nice. The reception that I got was awesome, and the fighters as well. They're all the whole experience. I absolutely adored. So it's definitely something I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. And I've got
Sure.
so many stories. The stories that I've got, we wouldn't even be able to cover in
Oh,
an
I'm
hour
sure.
because there's
Listen,
just
I
too
am
many.
sure you got stories for a lifetime, and I want to say hello
Yeah,
back to a couple of people. To our very good friend Trinity, who does a phenomenal job. She's the ring announcer for our very, very beloved company, XCW. And of course, XCW, I'm going to have coverage next Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. my time, 11:30 p.m. your time, with Ref Festus Davis. So I'm looking forward to being with Festus for the first time. He's going to be here with us 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 p.m. British Standard Time. And thank you. And Trinity was just telling me before on the air that she actually is she performs in theater, and she was actually in my neck of the woods in Staten Island 5 years ago. Would have never known her then, but she was telling me some places she actually knew, and I was like, wow, what a small world. I'm sure I'll talk about with her next month. And Jules has a great question. Did you try the fufu? What is the fufu, and what is that? I don't know what that is. Did you
fufu.
try fufu? Yeah.
I'm not too sure. I don't recall anyone telling me about fufu.
Okay.
But I mean, I may have because
Well, if
so
Jules wants to
much
tell us
happened
what
that
it
I
is,
can't really remember.
I'm happy to. If Jules wants to explain what it is, I'm happy to certainly come back to that and see if it reminded you of something. That's totally fine. But I'm sure we
Yeah.
can come back to that, in a few minutes. But overall, you go into Nigeria and you have all this take place. But I have to ask you one question here. So, what was it like finally meeting coronavirus? No, not COVID itself. You actually met the coronavirus, the actual B fighter. What was that like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the first time I seen him, he was actually facing off with one of his opponents, and I got led over to the side of the ring, and I was sitting next to the people with the drums, the musicians, and he kind of just looked over, and I give him like a little bit of a nod, and initially he didn't really like do anything. He just kind of looked at me and then looked away. So I thought, okay, he might not like me, but after that. I, I think it was because he was in the moment and he was squaring off against this other fella. But after that, he come over and like he was obviously communicating with me in some ways, and he kept saying, like he kept doing this to make sure you've got your guard up when you're fighting. So obviously because we got two totally different languages, and I didn't understand his language, he didn't understand mine. He just kept going like to say, make sure you keep your guard up.
Almost like Luke, it's almost like
So
sign language, almost like sign language.
yeah. Well, like combat sports is it's everyone understands it, don't they? It's
Yeah.
universal. So I
Yep.
think we were lucky there because we not many people spoke English, and I didn't really speak Hausa or anything. But no, he was very supportive, and you can see he's a leader, coronavirus, and you can see that with some people you can see leadership, and you can definitely see it with him. But yeah, we tried to swap numbers, but English numbers and Nigerian numbers, like they're different, so it
I
didn't
was
really
gonna
work
say
on my
it's not
phone. But
even WhatsApp. I don't even think the WhatsApp number would kind of be
yeah,
similar
it's
to that
different.
because I mean I'm on WhatsApp with obviously a number of different people in your country, your neck of the woods, and it's easy to kind of figure out. But over there, I would have no idea how to
Yeah,
basically relate to that. But I do want to say hello
yeah,
to a couple of people. First of all, I want to say hello to somebody that I hear through the grapevine you've gotten to know. And by the way, I got to give him a big plug because I'm actually wearing, because I knew you were actually, before I actually bring him back on the screen, I want him to see it because I'm actually wearing his shirt. I'm actually wearing his XCW Jack Delta shirt. That is Mr. Jack
nice.
Delta, who was recently the XCW New Age champion. I hear through the grapevine you've actually gotten to speak to Mr. Delta, and he says, hello, gentlemen. Congratulations on traveling and becoming a history maker. Keep grinding and doing your thing, brother. Much love. And coming from Mr. Delta, Mr. Delta has actually traveled. He's wrestled, and he can correct me on this, 23 promotions. He's won 27 championships in America, and he's traveled in 8 states. And on top of that, I believe, might be the only man that owns every single Scooby-Doo DVD. So apparently, if Jack Delta's telling you these things, he's like the man of not only wrestling and through all the different places in America, but also apparently he's the man for Scooby-Doo. So he's giving you some good insight. Maybe you guys could meet one day. I don't know. Maybe one day, the heavens could, certainly move, and the earth is about to rumble, and maybe we could get a photo op with you guys. I have no idea, but I think that would be a pretty cool bucket list thing. And Jack had his own day on Sportswire last Monday, and I might have something for you in about 20 minutes. So thank you, Jack, for tuning in. But let me come back to Judith, because she explains to us what fufu is. It's a very famous cornmeal-like consistency eaten in many parts of Africa, including Nigeria. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Trinity says fufu is served with a lot of Nigerian stews. You wet your fingers, rip some fufu, dip it in the stew, and eat it.
Yeah, I never got a chance to have fufu, but it sounds delicious. To be fair,
So
I'm quite
I
good
take
at
it that I take it that it's not McDonald's.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Well, do you know, weirdly enough, I got a message off one of my friends, and he said, "Why don't you go to like a KFC over there and get something like starchy?" And I was like, "A KFC? I'm on the verge of the Sahara. Like, there's no like KFCs or anything like that." But yeah, it's definitely a decent memorable place.
It's funny that it's somebody that brought that up to me. I'm on a radio station Wednesday nights, and the person that I do a show with was in Israel, and we were talking about what do you eat in Israel. He goes KFC, and I'm like, oh, really? You have KFC in Israel? I would think like kosher or whatever. He's like, no, they have everything, and so I'm like, maybe he had the same thought that he could imagine here, and Trinity wants to congratulate you. Yes, thank you, Trinity, for all you do. Trinity is amazing. She's got better pipes than me. She can certainly sing a lot better. She can speak a lot better than me. That's why she's the best ring announcer around, and I'm only just some little old me. But also, I can imagine that you were on a strict fighter's diet pre-match. Yeah. Anything you want to share on the diet for the audience before I ask you a few other general questions? Anything on the diet related?
Yeah, so before I went over to Nigeria, I was on a bit of a strict diet. Just kind of eating like a lot of tuna, brown pasta, brown rice,
Okay.
a lot of water. But I knew going over to Katsina, I thought I'm not going to be able to have that kind of a stricter of a diet. So I made sure my weight dropped a little bit more than what I needed. So going over there, I thought I'd be putting on like a couple of pounds just before the fight anyway. So I got a little bit more. I dropped a little bit more weight than I actually needed, but yeah. So over there, I just ate absolutely anything. Obviously, a lot of bread. There was one moment where I had to go over to. We were going over to the arena, and I knew like I'd be fighting in an hour, and I could just feel a little bit of like rumbling in my stomach, and I thought I just need something like a chocolate bar or something just to give me that energy. So I went over to the canteen, and I was with a fellow who was with us called Charles, and I was like, "Look, do you have like any chocolate bars or anything?" And he was like, "No." I was like, well, "What do you have?" And he said, "We've got bread and this, that, and the other." I was like, "Can you give me like a couple of slices of bread and just throw some salad cream on it or something?" Because I wanted that energy. They looked at me like that, like, "What? Aren't you going out in an hour?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just need something." So that was a bit of a weird moment.
Well, it's funny it's funny that comes up. There was in baseball, there's Major League Baseball, which has kind of become a little bit popular in the UK, and there was this baseball player who was popular in the 80s and 90s. His name was Mickey Tettleton, and one of his pre-meal things or his pre-rituals before he would go out and play was every time he would go out before a game would have a bowl of Fruit Loops. I mean, so there's kind of weird, quirky things that people would want. Like, for another example, there was another player, Wade Boggs, who was actually famously in one of the first early vignettes with Mr. Perfect, where Mr. Perfect was hitting a baseball. And before each game, he would have chicken. So sometimes people have rituals of certain foods or certain things that they have. So, it's actually what you said is not that far-fetched, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah, it's not that far-fetched.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have been eating like an hour before, but I just thought I don't want to be losing energy. I wanted that like starchy
Sure.
kind of energy. So I only ate like a little bit of bread with salad cream on it, but It was
Well,
something.
look at it like if you were
But
having sour cream ruffles or sour cream Lay's chips. The same
yeah,
thing, basically, right? I mean, so, let me get you a couple. Let me get you. We're having fun. We're having a lot of fun here with Luke Leyland. You want to follow Luke? Follow him on Instagram, Luke Leyland 1. He is awesome. You also want to follow the African Warriors Fighting Championship here, and all of these great platforms here. Got about another half hour with Luke. It is an absolute. I could ask Luke 1,000 questions. I realize I have to only ask him the big ones because he's going to have thousands of requests for interviews after this, and we are very honored that Luke picked us here to be his first interview after what he did last week and being the first British fighter to have ever fought in Dombey at the African Warriors Fighting Championships. I want to thank Mr. Maxwell Kalu for giving us this opportunity to grant Luke once again, once before Luke becomes super big. You can follow him on Instagram, African Warriors Fighting FC, African Warriors YouTube, African FC Twitter, African Fighting Warriors Facebook, AfricanWarriorsFC.com for your fix. Couple things here of note. Jules wanted to say the great thing about chain restaurants that they have their own particular flair depending on which country they are in. When I was in Israel, the McDonald's had shawarma, which is a big Jewish food, which I've noticed to see in a lot of different kosher places. So shawarma is certainly a place you'd see in Israel. Thank you for letting us know that. McDonald's Japan has some badass fries. I want to try along with the shrimp burger. Real side point on this, you'll probably chuckle. Davey Boy Smith Jr., obviously the British Bulldog son, posted on Instagram. I don't know if you follow him or not, but he actually is a big Wendy's fan. And he had Wendy's in Japan, and apparently Wendy's in Japan is like a really big deal now, and it kind of goes into what Trinity had to say here. So you never know what you get here. And Trinity also, by the way, was a great wrestler. She was a U.S. champion in XCW, and she was a phenomenal talent. And like I said, she definitely kick a lot of butts here. Maybe not yours, but most people in general. After post-match meal, I would grab some. Well, only because you fought. I think Trinity would even agree. What you did in Dombey was certainly one for the ages here. Also, post-match meal, I would grab some Japanese foods, ramen with pork, fish cakes, bean sprouts, and seaweed. Maybe dumplings like gyoza or shumai. And I apologize for any mispronunciations. I, definitely trying to read these off, so I appreciate that. And Jules wants to say shawarma is a Middle Eastern food. Yeah, it is Middle Eastern, but you see it also in a lot of kosher places, especially in parts of Brooklyn. But thank you for that stuff. I appreciate that. We'll move away from shawarma and talk about Luke Leyland. And, I have to ask you that. Obviously, and there is something I want to present on behalf of Sportswire Radio in a few minutes. But if I were to say to you, Luke Leyland, after everything that you've done, that you would be a trailblazer, an inspiration, those two things specifically, in calling you about what you did last week, and when we see these comments on social media, specifically the African Warriors Instagram, African Warriors FC, when you had UFC fighters, other mixed martial artists, kickboxers, all these different fighters, that after they saw what you did, now all of a sudden they want to take part in Dombey. If I were to call you a trailblazer specifically, what would that mean to you?
yeah, it's amazing to be called that, and like all the messages that I've had on Instagram and everything else, people have been absolutely amazing, saying these amazing things to me. But it's important that I stay true to myself and stay who I know I am, and not really let all them things get to me head. Sometimes when that light shines on people, sometimes they can let it kind of get to the head. And that's definitely not me. But plus, as well, my girlfriend wouldn't let me be like that. She'd punch me head in. But no, it's lovely, and I was with the family yesterday, and I said to them, like, I really want the younger generation to be able to see what I've done here and be able to do their own things and do better than me. And I'm just here to remind people that, like, they've got dreams too, and just do.
But when you see those comments, though, of people, when you see those comments, though, of people that are professional competitive fighters, and they saw what you did, they watched the videos, they watched the highlights, and now they said, you know what, Dombey, I took note of it, and I want to maybe go and partake in that. I mean, you had to know that strikes a nerve, and that you made a long-lasting difference. You have made an impact. I mean, you have to know that when you see now professional competitive fighters now say, you know what, I want to maybe partake in Dom. I mean, we knew that obviously in UFC there have been people that have used it in technique, but when you see now basically the floodgates open and people now want to maybe say, you know what, I didn't know Dombe, but now I know Dombe. I saw Luke Leyland. Now I want to take part in it. You have to know that you did something pretty important.
Yeah, I think before the actual fight, I knew that we had the potential to do something like that, to make it more recognizable, and that was one of my goals. Like the fans deserve like global recognition of Danbe, and the fighters deserve it as well. You know, them fighters, they fight multiple times a week, and I'm not too sure what they get paid or anything like that, but they do deserve like the recognition. They really do. Because they go through some wars on that sand. And in the future, when Danbe does become massive, because I believe it will,
I
it's
think
nice
that's
to sit
look,
there.
look at the African Warriors Fighting Facebook page. Look at the YouTube page. I mean,
Yeah,
a big
yeah,
following. I mean, this is like, I tell you
yeah,
the truth, there's a lot of people that tune into this stuff. And,
yeah,
we saw the interview with Maxwell did a few years back. And I mean, there are people, I think, getting into it. And I think that in a
yeah,
lot of ways, that's what it's about, letting people know that there's other things out there. And I think Dombe can do it. I'll give you an example real quick, and I'll come back to Jules and Trinity. Is cricket, right? Cricket has exploded, right? Cricket. I'll give you an
yeah,
example here in America. Jules could probably vouch for this because she lives in Brooklyn, New York. I live in Staten Island, but I lived in Brooklyn, and a lot of baseball diamonds have been taken over by cricket. Cricket has become a game that has exploded around the world, right? Dombe could be a form of fighting in the next 3 years, maybe 4 years, whatever it is, right? Could explode. So in a
yeah.
way, I think Dombe, it's almost like there's an untapped market that you might be helping in a way reach out to, whether it's even here in a small way or other outlets where I'm sure you'll certainly get some interviews and attention, that Dombe could certainly explode to me. And I think cricket is really, I think, the comparison that I would see where cricket has taken over a lot of baseball diamonds here in America. And it's a game that was certainly popular in other parts of the world. And I think Dombe is, to me, very similar.
Well, with Danbe, it's not just about the fighting on the sand. There's a lot more that goes into it. There's some spiritual beliefs. If you look at my hand here, I know it looks like I've got a fake tan on, and the nail, it looks like I've been painting my nails. But
I didn't know you were
that's
into nine. I didn't know you were into 9-inch nails there, Luke.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a yeah, it's a crazy one. But yeah, but like this is part of the like some of the beliefs that the fighters have with Danbe. And going over there, I didn't want to just like take part in Danbe with a certain style. I wanted to learn the art of Danbe, and I wanted to go through exactly what the fighters went through. So that was the spiritual beliefs and the preparations and things like that. I went through quite a bit. We went to see a malam, which is like a herbalist, and he actually like blessed me hand, and he gave me like a charm as well that I actually used to put in my glove, in the rope, sorry. And there's a lot that went into it. Like you see the musicians there with the
Yes,
drums, that's a
I was
huge
seeing
part
that.
of
Yes.
Danbe. And like uh, going over to and reacting with them, that's a massive part of it. um, Putting the rope on, and obviously the spiritual beliefs as well is absolutely massive. So that's what got me hooked. The whole the whole of Danbe, like the beliefs, the rope, the musicians, the everything, all the preparation. It's not just about like the fighting. There's a lot that goes into it. Like, so I
Absolutely.
think
Oh,
when the world
listen.
sees that,
Yeah, it's
I,
almost like an event. It's not just about the fight. There's so much more to it. Sometimes in sports or even in wrestling, obviously you wrestled and we're a wrestling station. Trinity, she's in the wrestling world. Wrestling, it's like, okay, you go to the show, maybe you have a meet and greet and that's it. But with Dombe to me is like in a lot of ways like the World Cup. The World Cup to me is like a whole big event. And I think that Dombe has
yeah.
an opportunity. And also Dombe's in a short amount of time. Sometimes you sit through sporting events and you're there for hours at a time. Dombe, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's all kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
dominoes.
Well, like what kind of shocked me was like the speed that people emptied the arena, and like it's almost like this amazing thing's just happened, and very quickly, like the arena's empty, and it's like wow. But do you have to cut it at a certain time as well? Because there's a lot of people that go to to pray and stuff. So
Yes, sure.
we have the
A
Danbe
big
first, and
Muslim
then I think they
population
all,
over there, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, right?
yeah, huge, yeah. So they'll cut the show, and then everyone will obviously go off to pray. So but yeah, there's, as I say, there's so much that goes into an event. I actually at the King of Danbe, I arrived like ridiculously early. I got there really early, and one of the crew members, Coyote, he said, "Why are you here?" And I was like, I don't know, like, it's the show. And he was like, you need to go back. You need to go back and just rest. He goes, try and sleep for an hour. He said, you shouldn't be here this early. So I ended up going back to the compound where we were in. But yeah, there's so much that goes into that show. And African Warriors, you get to see exactly what they do and how much effort they put into a show. And yeah,
I have
I'm
a
kind
lot of
of just
respect
made up.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of just made up that I was just fighting, because all the preparation and stuff, setting everything up and get everything sorted, it must have been really stressful. Like, so, I kind of had the easy part, so to say, just getting in there and fighting. All the
Easy part.
all
You're the one in there doing
the
something you've never done before, and you're taking
yeah,
punishment that you almost can't prepare for. And that's the easy part. Boy,
yeah,
you know what?
yeah.
What I know is that Dombe people need to go find out more information on those ways below. And certainly, if you want to support Sportswire Radio, do that. And I'm going to have something for you in a second that I might want to ask you, if you might want an honor to have before I ask you a final question or two. But let me get to a few more comments here from Jules and Trinity. Ashley, we should visit Japan together. I've been teaching myself the language. I'd absolutely love to try all the different foods and snacks there. I certainly hope that you get those opportunities, and you certainly come back and not have the experience that Davy Boy Smith Jr. had and went to a Wendy's instead. Trinity, well, that was funny because people like Davy Boy Smith. Why would you have Wendy's at Japan? But he gave his explanation. You can check it out on his Instagram page. Also, I think this is kind of refreshing to see other sports repped outside of wrestling. I'll have to look up at Dambe. Now, I want to say this real quick, not to give myself a pat in the back, but there has been nobody in the 5 years that Sportswire has been around. I am the only person out there that, and it's factually true, I've covered high school athletics, I've covered university athletics, I've covered professional athletics, I've covered all forms of wrestling. It doesn't matter if it's pro, the underground, the yard, in between. I have also covered women's amputee soccer. I have covered Dambe. I have covered marathon runners. I have covered pretty much mixed martial arts. There is really not anything that Tom Bryce and Sportswire Radio has done. I am the only man that has done that, and that's why you need to follow Sportswire Radio. Tell all your friends, yell from the rooftops, and make sure you support us, because I do this and I give it back to the community. People were asking me before I went in the air. I had a coach ask me, well, do you make any money from Sportswire? I said, no. And I said, the reason why is because I do it for the community, I do it for the people, and I do it to give showcases to people like Luke Leyland, people like Maxwell Kalu, people like the African Warriors Fighting Championship, people like those that take part in Dambe, because that's what it's all about, showcasing to people, doing different things out there, those that are making a difference, those that are out there in our communities each and every day and bringing positive change, bringing hope, and bringing things to what we see as a diversion of what's going on out there in the world. People like Luke Leyland have been doing that. People like Luke Leyland have been making a difference. That's what it's about here on Sportswire. So I just wanted to put that out there. But also, Luke, yes, he is going to bring Dambe to the UK, but he's also going to bring it to around the world, because if you looked at the African Warriors Instagram page, there were fighters from all over the place that want to go out and take part in this, and that's because of Luke. And Luke, obviously, I'm going to ask you about maybe the future of you and Dambe, but I was thinking about this. We were speaking about you as a trailblazer, an inspiration, in the first ever British fighter to have fought in Dambe, and bringing Dambe to a whole new set of eyeballs and around the world. And I know you definitely know about this. There's this thing called the Sportswire Radio's Hall of Fame. And obviously, we've inducted 19 people into it. And actually, one of those people that's in the Hall of Fame, the second person to be inducted, is actually, the man that trained you to be a professional wrestler. Maybe the man inadvertently over 15 years ago laid the foundation for you to actually have taken part in what we saw you do last week in Nigeria. And I was thinking about this. To me, there is no better person to close out our second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, a man that is a trailblazer, a man that is a revolutionary, a man that has made a difference now in the lives of people and is an inspiration, a walking, talking, breathing, living inspiration. And that's what the definition of a Hall of Fame is. Somebody that did a once in a lifetime thing, somebody that's a part of an iconic moment in history, and somebody that is the definition of greatness. That's what the Hall of Fame is. And I was wondering, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, the people's radio station, and those that are fans of yours, those that are fans of Dambe, and those that might be fans of the African Warriors Fighting Championship. Luke Leyland, would you want to be the final member of our second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame?
Mr. Bryce, there some amazing words, and I'd be absolutely honoured to be part of it. I'm a fan of the show first, and just to be part of something like that, yeah, I'll be absolutely honoured.
Now, Mr. Leyland, I came prepared for this event. I came prepared because a lot of people would have said, yeah, all right, fine. But I actually, for those that are listening and watching, have something on the air. I know you haven't got a chance to see it, but because this is such a special moment, I actually wanted to present to you something on the air that's official. Because, a lot of people have asked me and said, the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, does it physically exist? Is there anything that people get from it? But obviously, we've had 19 people now into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, and we've all presented the 19 different names in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame with something as a way that I think showcases and shows that we're an actual Hall of Fame, unlike, let's say, the WWE Hall of Fame, where many people have asked, well, the WWE Hall of Fame, does it actually exist, or is it Vince McMahon basically picking who he liked and who he thought maybe should be in his Hall of Fame to get publicity? But we actually don't do it for publicity here on Sports by Radio. We do it to recognize throughout my 5 years. Again, my 5-year anniversary is next Thursday, coming up here January 25th. But I do it to recognize all the people that have done so many extraordinary things, whether it's in high school athletics, university athletics, professional athletics, all forms of wrestling, and especially Luke Leyland, what we've done here and getting a chance to speak with you about your journey being the first ever person to have fought in Dambe last weekend in Nigeria, African Warriors Fighting Championship. We have here on behalf of Sportswire Radio and on behalf of yours truly, we wanted to give you this right here, Luke Leyland. Congratulations. You officially have an actual certificate that actually shows that you are the 20th member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame on this date, January the 20th, 2024. You have been inducted into our Hall of Fame. You have your name there. You have my signature, my name, our logo on Sportswire Radio, and you were the final member of our second class. And I could not think of a better person to round out our second class of names in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And it's a pretty cool class that we've inducted into the second class. Obviously, a couple of our analysts are in there, like Randy Dillon, who also dabbled a little bit in the professional wrestling world. He was actually trained for a little bit of time from a guy, Bruce Hart. I'm sure you heard of the Hart family. And recently, yesterday, we had on our show from the Work in Progress guys, Brent Piles, Mayor of Canton, Glenn Abbott. We had Chris Jones, of course, Trinity Knows, and XCW, part of our second class. And Chris Craven last weekend, who wrestled already in the Baltimore Elite Wrestling Alliance Hall of Fame. It's a really, really important class. Bentley, cannot forget about Bentley, who just wrestled today in Kingdom Wrestling UK against the Stalker, Dave Birch. What a match that was. But it's a really, really unique class that's a part of here, these 10 names. And I wanted to round it out here as the final member of our second class into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. I wanted it to be you, Mr. Luke Leyland.
Oh, thank you for that, Mr. Bryce. You've done quite a lot for a lot of people, and I recognise that, and just to be part of the Hall of Fame that that so many great talents are part of, I'm absolutely made up. So as I said, I'm a fan of the show.
I appreciate that, and that's not why you got inducted, by the way. You actually, because people have asked me what is the criteria, because some Yahoo on Facebook had posted something about who was in the Hall of Fame and who wasn't. But the facts are is this Hall of Fame actually is made up of Hall of Fame people that are actually in the Hall of Fame who have done Hall of Fame-like things. The likes of RPD, the likes of your old trainer, Dean Olmark, who you're now going to share a historic moment with, and other people, certainly in XCW, Chris Jones, Justin Parsley, Fletch for Trinity. I mean, a lot of really great people. Bentley as well. Bentley, congratulations. Bentley was inducted Wednesday in the Hall of Fame. But the facts are is that the Hall of Fame is meant for great people who have done great things and who have done something that will certainly 10, 15, 20 years from now, people are going to look back and say, you know what? Luke Leyland did something that automatically has put him into the Hall of Fame. Not only is he a Hall of Fame person, not only is he a Hall of Fame fighter, but he's going to really establish himself as a Hall of Famer for thousands upon thousands of people who are now going to take part in what's called Dambe. So it's not a matter of the length or how many wins, losses. It's not about that. The Hall of Fame on Sportswire Radio is about those that have done something that is memorable or have done something that is going to impact their legacy for lifetimes ahead and far more what they've accomplished in the squared circle or outside of it. And that's why I wanted you officially to be our final member of our second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, because we obviously doing each 10 members are a part of a new class, and I wanted this second class to end with somebody like you who was a trailblazer and an inspiration.
Oh, it means a lot, Mr. Bryce. And sometimes, when you hear them things, I try and just put it at the back of my mind and don't really listen. But with you saying it, it means a lot. And to have that's getting printed off, and it's getting on me little trophy shelf here.
I appreciate that. We've actually had some people have messaged me. Fletch has messaged me. I know Rob Maraska, who was inducted a couple of weeks ago, has messaged me. I think a few other people. I think Justin Parsley might have been one of the other people that had messaged me that they've gotten these actually certificates printed out and framed. Yeah, Rob Maraska framed it. Man. Fletch got it framed. So some people actually have gotten these things framed. So that's a pretty cool thing. I think also the IMF guys, shout out to them, Soldier and Omen Black. And Omen Black and Soldier are going to be wrestling tonight at the New Year's Vengeance for the IMF show. And I think they've actually posted on Facebook, and I believe they got theirs framed as well. So I think it's really an honorable thing that you would do that. And, we wanted you to be a part 100%. Of it. Also on our website, sportswireradio.org, your photo is on our website, basically showing the day you've been inducted and what you did. So congratulations. You're a part of history. And, I definitely, want to ask you, though, very quickly before I get to closing thoughts. So what is the future of Luke Leyland? Are you going to come back, let's say, and fight in Dambe again? So what's the future now that you're a Hall of Famer, my friend?
To be fair, I need to sit down with African Warriors, and there's rumours of a rematch, but it's for me, it's got to make sense, and they're conversations that I'll have with AWFC, and we'll see where we go. We'll see where we go next. But initially, my idea was to go around the world and get involved in these rare sports, and try and give it some sort of notoriety. And if I'm sticking to that plan, then I'll have to look for a different sport. But there's many conversations. There's many conversations that I need to have with certain people. And at the moment, I'm not too sure. We'll have to just see what comes. But whatever I do next, it's going to be just as exciting. So yeah.
I can't wait. And I want to say, Luke, whatever it is you're talking about, I want it here on Sportswire. I want to talk about it because everything you do is amazing and awesome. And I do want to say a couple things. People want to congratulate you. Thank you for that kind words. Yes, it's always been my mind. I'm not good at many things, but what I've been good at my life is that I've always been a networker, and I've always been about the people. There was somebody that I had worked for who was a state senator, and the advice he always gave was, you have to feel the people. He always said you had to walk the community. He always said you had to go out there and feel the people. And he was in office for many, many years, and that always stuck by me. And that's why Sportswire has been successful in all the things that I have done. And that's why I still have people that, still to this day, want to be friends with me. That's always been my entire life motto. Yes, we definitely saved the best for last. Luke is the best. We certainly congratulate you. Yes, we agree with this individual. We definitely agree that the future is going to be bright for you, Mr. Luke. Congratulations, Luke. Cheers to Trinity. I believe I heard from a birdie. You're going to be back on Sportswire in the month of February at some point. So maybe you'll get your cue in history, and that might be happening in February. So stay tuned for that. So I want to ask you a couple other questions before closing thoughts, but basically kind of the same things. What do you want to say to the African Warriors Fighting Championship, to everybody there and the people of Nigeria who you got a chance to meet last weekend?
I just want to thank them all just for the love that I've received. As I said, there was a couple of difficult moments over in Nigeria for myself, and African Warriors helped me out, and they really made me feel like part of the family. So I was made up for that, and the people of Dambe and like the community of Dambe has really made me part of their family, and I can't thank you enough. I put a video up on my Instagram of the crowd outside
I
the
saw
bus,
that. I saw that.
and that's literally that what you see there was what I was getting all the way through. And the fans have really treated me like a winner after that. And it was like I actually won the fight. They came over and embraced me and all sorts. So just for that, I just I say thank you to them, and I feel like I owe them a lot. just to just yeah. So I just thank them all. African Warriors. I mean, with all this like kind of notoriety I'm getting now and stuff, that wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for African Warriors. They really promoted me and put me out there. So, we can't forget like what it's all because of what they've done. Not really much what I've done. It's how they've promoted me. So, yeah, I'm just thankful for everything. And this is an experience that I can tell people about, and what a journey that started in Africa. So I'm made up.
What are your goals in 2024 is my last question. I know we spoke a lot about this moment, but what would be your goals in 2024?
Um, it's very difficult to say, to be honest, because there's a lot going on now after this, and there's a lot of people asking me different questions, and I think at the moment it's to continue doing what I've done. I would love to take part in a different sport, just the same. Um, it's really difficult to say what's next. It's the only thing I can say is just keep watching, and I'm sure we'll get involved in something.
I have no doubt that you'll do all those great things. I have no doubt that Luke Leyland, the best is yet to come. You have certainly entered 2024 with a roar. There was somebody that gave me the best advice. 2024, you're going to start the year out with a roar, and you definitely did that and some in making history as the first British fighter to have ever participated and fought in Dambe at the Kings of Dambe African Warriors Fighting Championship event that took place last week in Nigeria. And if you're recapping here and you're going to watch this or you're going to watch this later, Luke Leyland is the final member of our second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He joins a class of people like his own trainer, Dean Allmark, the man that was the second person inducted into our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So the irony in that, but it's a great class of names that was in our second class. Chris Jones, of course, the EBW leader and also XCW Hall of Famer. We also had Chris Bizet and Patrick Trotty, Randy Dillon, host of the Hockey Fan Chat, Chris Craven, Bentley, the vigilante of pro wrestling, and Brent Piles, the mayor of Canton, and Glenn Abbott. And to round out our second class of names in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Luke Leyland. And I agree with you, Trinity. Cheers to Luke. I know you're a busy man, so I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? I know you got requests for tons of interviews. I know you got requests to be there, and everything else in between. But I now give you the floor, and what an honor it is to be the first person that got a chance to speak with you before you certainly blow up and you become so well known. And I can't say enough good things about you. What an honor it was to get to know you over a year ago. You reached out to me, and obviously, you'd watch some of these shows, and I was like, yeah, of course I'll speak to you. You made it like with such a big deal to come on the platform, and I'm like, yeah, sure, of course I'll speak with you. I mean, we always love speaking to people and do different things, and boy, you have certainly been on quite a ride, and just to see you go through this, and and to call you a friend, and now to obviously call you a member of our Hall of Fame, I can't sing your praise enough. And you have certainly been an inspiration. You've been an influence. You've been a trailblazer. And I'm gonna not say any more good things about you because you're gonna probably either say stop it already. So let me give you the floor. Let me give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I want people to look at this and be able to think like they can do the same. They can do whatever that they want to do. It's so many times and that I've seen people and they don't really believe in themselves, and this is what happens when you bet on yourself. Like, believe in yourself and just have a go at whatever you want to do. And even if you have a go at whatever you want to do and it fails, then at least you've had a go. Just have a go at whatever you want to do, and great things will happen if you believe in yourself 100%.
You definitely did that and some. And again, if you want to follow Luke Leyland, very simple. Instagram, Luke Leyland1, as in the number 1. If you want to also follow the African Warriors Fighting Championship, I put all the links here in the description. Instagram, African Warriors FC, where you can see some of those highlights. YouTube, African Warriors, also see some of those highlights. Twitter, African FC. Facebook, African Fighting Warriors, over 84,000 followers there. AfricanWarriorsFC.com. Make sure you support all of that here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the number 1 global radio station, the people's radio station, your voice of all wrestling, here where all wrestling matters. And one more time, to be inducted into our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, the man that was the first ever fighter from Britain to fight in Dombay, Mr. Luke Leyland. And I want to give one more shout out actually to our friend, Mr. TBK. TBK made a little logo for us, and I wanted to close and give him a nice shout out. TBK is the host of the Be More Talkative podcast, and he made a nice logo for us that will play here on some of the shows from time to time. And I wanted to unveil that. And thank you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I wish you a lot of luck in watching your Baltimore Ravens get out there in the football field. I know you guys are playing in the second quarter as we speak, but thank you so much, TBK, for the wonderful banner. And I look forward to having you back here on Sportswire Radio for more wrestling coverage. But my friend, congratulations. Thank you for all that you've done. It's an absolute honor to have known you over the past year, and I can't wait to see what the future brings and anything else we can do to cover Dombay African Warriors Fighting Championships and your journey. Don't hesitate to ask. We're a bat signal away, my friend.
Oh, thank you for that, Mr. Bryce. Means a lot to me. Thank you for that. You do a lot of good things for a lot of people, and I don't think you're praised that much, and you really should be. So thank you for doing this good thing for me.
Well, I'm kind of like you when the praise comes. I'm like, nah. I'm like, don't. It's not true. I was on a podcast. I was on 2 podcasts in the last 2 weeks, and they were praising. I'm like, nah, it's not true. I'm like, whatever you're saying, it's all a fib. Whatever. It's about the people, and we want to give people an opportunity to hear different things and do here best on Sportswire Radio, and that's why I've survived here as long as I have, because most people that do this do not survive, and I have been able to not only survive but thrive going on 5 years. And I want to thank the Tribal Cheese, Mr. Tribal Cheese. He enjoyed the interview, and he kind of waited to say something. I was kind of like waiting, like, well, why didn't you say something earlier other than your earlier comments? But he's going to be here Wednesday night, 8 o'clock British Standard Time, and I can't wait because he's going to speak a lot. He's going to say a lot about his return in the ring next week in a Cutlery Championship Wrestling's event, Fighter Strike 3, and he may even speak about some other things here. So I'm really excited about that. He's got blonde hair now, so certainly I'm still getting used to the blonde hair tips, but he'll talk about all that and a bag of chips, like, of course, the very lovely downtown Julie Brown, the old MTV VJ. He also says, I was doing errands. Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. I'm not going to argue with that. I acknowledge you on that. But until then, if you're on sportswireradio.org, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on Twitch now for the first time, thank you for tuning in. Also, if you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I'll be back 10 o'clock Eastern Time, New York time, with DJW of EBW Pro and Wrestling. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number 1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. And thank you again to Luke Leyland and for him making history. And until then, I'll see everybody in a little while on Sportswire Radio. Be safe out there, and I hope you warmed up with our show tonight.